3, 4.
We just live right now, man. It's going down, excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
And we're back with part 2 of my interview with Fayaz, the managing editor of Brew Hoop. On this part of the interview, we go through the team's weaknesses, the other back end of the questions for our season preview series, and of course, we end with miscellaneous in this edition of Van's Warped Tour. Thank you for listening, and hope you enjoy the rest of the interview.
Next one. What is the team's current greatest weakness, and why is it Bobby Portis still employing the lethal shooter guy as his shot doctor? Can we get to the bottom of this? What are we? Did you? I can't remember. Did I share that post of the lethal shooter? He had like new tool coming up, and it was like a basketball hoop with like spikes on it or whatever.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So sorry. What do you think is the current greatest weakness? It could be.
I feel like if there's the weaknesses with Bobby, we can't blame on lethal shooter, unfortunately.
No, I'm trying, but I can't. It's really the only thing I could think of is like, and I'm way too lazy to even do this. It was like the speed of the release of Bobby's shot is like, has it slowed down a little bit, and are people?
It's a little bit like a blunderbuss, yeah.
A little bit. Okay.
Not quite Brogdon levels, but yeah.
No.
Well, okay. Biggest weakness on the team. I mean, I tend to look at things just from like a roster construction perspective. And you look at what is kind of missing from this team. You talk about a fourth big, and when I say big, I mean someone who's capable of playing the 5. Now, all right, the Bucks don't need that guy in the rotation. You don't need 4. It's 2024. You don't need 4 guys who could play center into your rotation.
A bunch of 7-foot giants.
Yeah. You need some, I mean, you need someone as a break in case of emergency guy. Anzish Pasichnich, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. That's how I think you pronounce his name.
Sounds pretty good.
Probably not going to be that guy. Maybe this Liam Robbins dude. Who knows? So Tyler Smith is probably the only other center capable guy outside of those 4 on the roster. But I don't think that's that big a deal. And when I say center capable, that's really not a good way of putting it. He's the biggest guy.
He's just a tall guy. He is the tallest guy left. Yeah.
On the standard
of the
roster.
Other guys.
But I don't think that's it. I don't think that's their biggest weakness. I also don't think it's necessarily like, I've heard some people say maybe they need another ball handler, which you look at, what obviously there's Dame and Chris Middleton is a point forward. You have DeLon Wright, who is a combo guy. And I think maybe it was our Jackson, who was talking about this, but Andre Jackson is a guy I'd like to see do a little bit more with the ball in his hands next year. He's a good connector. That's a phrase we've used a lot with him. He's a good connector. Great secondary ball handler. Maybe let him just have the keys a little bit, see if with certain lineups at certain contexts, to see if he can capture a little bit of that UConn magic. And then I think your third point guard is AJ Johnson, who I'd like to see run the offense at times this year, and it'd be really cool to see him do it with actual rotation players or starters. So I don't think that's really a weakness either. I don't see as much of a weakness in terms of how the roster is constructed, which a lot of people, when they think about weaknesses, that's what they default to. So then I look at kind of just skills, the skill set of the team, and shooting. I think I feel decently confident in shooting. The Bucks haven't. They don't have a sniper minimum guy this year that they. I guess you could call Gary Trent Jr. that, but he's much more than that. But they didn't go out and sign Malik Beasley or
Bryn Forbes
or Kyle Korver this year. But AJ Green is that guy. And that's great. So and Torian Prince, big upgrade as a shooter, obviously over Jay Crowder. So I don't think it's that. The other things you worry about in the NBA, like I guess, just scoring. I don't think that's going to be a problem for the Bucks. Again, assuming health. Rebounding hasn't traditionally been an issue with this team. So it's just defense. It's just wing defense. Like we don't know, I think, like just what they're going to look like this year with like with how the season started last year with a completely jacked up defensive scheme that did not fit the personnel on the roster at all. It quickly looked like this was a terrible defensive team. Were they a better defensive team than that? Like actually, yeah, the truth is somewhere like, in between what they were under Bud and what they were under Griffin. And it seemed like Doc kind of captured that a bit. The defense was very good in his initial run of games, however long his first month.
We were all like, we're in. This is it. We did it. We found
he figured it out. But that was, part of it was just getting back to basics and just this is how you defend in the NBA right now. Not this way that you were previously doing it. So obviously the point of attack was the main issue last year. The Bucks getting shredded by guards, dynamic young scoring guards every night that they play them basically. And then to deal with that this year, you bring in DeLon Wright, who I think, is older than those guys, but there's an advantage in that, and he has the size for it. I'd like to see Andre Jackson Jr. get more of a shot at those guys. I think that in that first round series, Doc did get a little more comfortable with using Ajax on Halliburton, if only because he had to, just because there was no one else healthy.
Jay Crowder sure as hell wasn't helping out, so we had to do what we had to do.
And I think Gary Trent will also, he's a guy who will contribute in that way too. So, and who knows? Let's see what 160-pound soaking wet AJ Johnson can do. He does. I mean, based on his summer league play, it seems like he does have some solid, some solid between the ears concepts of how to play defense. So maybe you let him try it out and just see if he doesn't get completely annihilated like most rookies do, and he probably will. I will be very happy if we just see him play some quality NBA defense this year. So yeah, just point of attack and perimeter wing defense, however you want to put it. That's probably their biggest weakness. But at the same time, I'm not saying it's going to be a strength of this team, like it always was with Drew Holiday and even Eric Bledsoe. But it might not be. I'm hopeful it won't be, just because of what the differences in this team between what's going to come in on day one this year and what came in on day one last year. That's going to be enough to just make them I hope a decent team with point of attack defense.
Yeah, there will always be especially in the regular season, a certain level of weakness with Dame in particular in terms of defense, which is fine. It is what it is. But I think you're right that we won't be a month and a half, 2 months into the season, and every NBA national article is like, if you're a guard on another team that's playing against the Bucks, you are going to have a career night every single night you play them. So
you're going to drop 40 and just get to the rim with ease. So.
Yeah, and you're going to look great doing it too. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. So, next question. You, of anybody on the current staff, are most obligated to make sure there's game coverage for all 82 plus Bucks games every year. We spend a lot of time watching, analyzing, thinking, our pet things that we like to see, that we want to see. What's something that you would like to see the Bucks do during the regular season to keep things entertaining for you? What's something maybe a little off the beaten path that you're that's interesting. That's something I would like to keep seeing most nights, or that you would keep an eye on.
I don't know if this is off the beaten path. And I do think that others have, like Mitchell and probably Jackson too, have said something similar, but the way I'm putting it maybe is a little bit differently, but really don't want to see that regular season malaise that we saw last year. I mean, yeah, we joke about the games in
Tuesday night
whatever,
on the road in February in Charlotte. Yes.
Whatever mid market team in the East, or maybe like, Memphis, who is close enough to the Eastern Conference. And just because that's where we saw it happen this last year, that was the opponent we saw it with. Like, clearly a team that like was just going through the motions. A lot of people talked about how in the early part of the season, when they were, the 30-13 record under Adrian Griffin, like they were just getting by on talent a lot. And it's true. Like that was an easier schedule. Yes. By strength of schedule. And they could kind of just like, they did not look good at a lot of times. Like, it's not like they looked any better, I would say, under Griffin, like just in terms of like, the product, like the eye test, the body language, all that stuff. I don't think that was any better under Adrian Griffin than it was under Doc Rivers. So we saw it get to some real low points last year, like in Memphis right before the All-Star break. Just this malaise, this regular season, like, God, like it's a grind. But the way certain guys were just going about their business, people we can rag on Jay Crowder again. He was a part of this, but it wasn't just him. I think Bobby Portis was a big part of it too last year. Like I would even see, like, I think Malik Beasley too. And then you would see like from like Middleton and Brook Lopez, this like exasperation. Like, these guys are like, making our lives hell right now. You'd see Chris Middleton, like, who is not a demonstrative guy, who is not likely to get in your face if you're a teammate of his, getting in people's faces, being like, what the hell are you doing? Like, we're trying to win basketball games. So I just do not want to see that this year. Like, I would, if it happens once or twice and they lose it's going to happen to some extent in an NBA season. Like, you get into late Feb, you get into right before the All-Star break. Like, yeah, people are tired. I get it, but I think they need to play with a lot more pride than we saw last year. Giannis, I think those were his exact words when he was talking about this type of thing in a press conference. We need to play like we're the Bucks. Another thing people like to say, they're playing with their food a little bit, and the Bucks were certainly doing this in those like regular season buzzsaw years, 2018, 19, 2020, until the bubble year. It's like, we saw the Bucks just ram through the regular season game, like these regular season games against, like, think about that what was that 18 game win streak in 2019, like in December or so, where they were just eviscerating teams. I mean, they were beating them like 130 to like 100. They were taking no prisoners. I mean, that's sort of like, that's not probably necessary. And in years after that, we saw them kind of play with their food a little bit sometimes during the regular season. They played with their food a lot last year. But they do need to be a bit more like those early Bud teams who were really trying to assert themselves as an Eastern Conference contender. And we're at that point, like, the biggest deal in the Eastern Conference. Like, that was the team you had to get past. And now they're sort of in this old guard of contenders, as people are sort of regarding them, like kind of with Phoenix and like Golden State and maybe the Lakers. It's like, are these guys still title contenders? And I don't know about the other ones, but I think the Bucks certainly still are. And a lot of why people are saying that is because of how last regular season looked. And the 2 first round exits, which people are using against them without acknowledging the massive injury problems that they had in those series. But yeah, I think that's it. Like, just be a little bit more like those teams that we saw prior to the COVID shutdown that were just annihilating the East and ramming through regular season games left and right. You don't need to go all the way that way. Like, that's like a Tom Thibodeau type thing to do, and you'll wear everyone out. But like a little bit more of that, please. So, they're not struggling to get the 3 seed or to 50 wins like we saw last year. That's what I want to see.
sustained ass kicking is enjoyable as a fan. Like when you're
I'd like
sitting at
some of
home,
that.
you're like, this is good to see. And then sustain it for most of the game so you don't have a late like, okay, where's the collapse? Why are we
Yeah,
collapsing now all of a
Yeah, we
sudden?
don't
What's
have a
going on?
situation like that game in Toronto a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I would like to see. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. I don't want to say more about it, but yeah, I would like to see like a solid like 2 to 3 week period where they're just like blitzing the shit out of teams. Like their average margin of victory is like 20 points. Like they run up. I'd like to see them run up the score a few times, like on good teams.
Yeah.
Just be like, okay, let's step on their throats a little bit. Like, just do that here and there in the regular season. Things will be a lot better come March and April.
Speaking of March and April, in order for the Bucks to win a title this season, they must blank.
It's stay healthy, but like that's
if you were to pick another option, if you were to pick another option,
it's an easy answer. Granted, and like I said, I don't always go with the best answer, not the most
exciting,
innovative answer. But I do have some other things to say about this. Okay, just as an addendum, like to win a title, Giannis needs to stay healthy. To win a healthy, Giannis needs to stay title. Jeez, it's been a week.
It's true in its own way. It's true. Yes.
Yeah. If Giannis is missing, I think the days of like that Atlanta series where he misses a couple games and they still win. Maybe that happens against some opponents in the East, but that's not going to be happening against I think any of the top teams in the East this year. It's like if they're having to rely on the same kind of a similar team that we saw against Indiana, like even with the upgrades with Gary Trent and DeLon Wright, etc., they're probably they might be able to beat without Giannis, if he wasn't playing in one of those series, God forbid, like they might be able to beat the Heat. They might be able to. I don't know. I'm still a little wary about the Heat, but they might be able to beat Orlando or someone. But like a play-in team, but a good team like a Boston, Philly, no way they can do it without Giannis. But anyway, this is one thing I really realized this past year. When to win a title, you need to have at least, like at the bare minimum, you need to have 6 players, ideally 7, who in every series, who this is how I've written about it, and this is how I'll put it from now on, who help the team more than they hurt you. Mm-hmm. So to illustrate this, like we're gonna take a little stroll down memory lane. I will say, you need to have the talent, the requisite talent too. Like you need to have really good high-end talent, but that's not a problem for the Bucks. And that hasn't been a problem for the Bucks ever since, this current era of contention that I've been talking about, starting in the 2018-19 season. So let's go back to that. We're going to go through each playoff series that they've played ever since then. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the sweep of Detroit in the first round that year, like 42-win Detroit team, but suffice it to say that like Giannis, Middleton, Lopez, George Hill, whose jersey I'm wearing today, that was not planned. It was just first off the pile. All those guys had great series. Even looking back at those numbers, like Sterling Brown, 103 minutes that series, started 4 games, shot 57% from the field and 55% from 3. Hats off to you, Sterling Brown. Even Nikola Mirotic was pretty good in that series. So they had like 8 guys who had great series. Against Boston, which was a 5-game gentleman's sweep, obviously Giannis was great. Chris Middleton, we remember, was like outstanding, as he always has been against Boston in the playoffs. That was a huge George Hill series. That was the series that like cemented George Hill's place on the team, like on his new contract. And also Pat Connaughton had some really big games. But it's kind of interesting looking back at it. It's like, Bledsoe obviously really struggled in the playoffs, and his main sins were against Boston were the previous year, but he was all right in that series. And I think I recall him, Kyrie Irving wasn't a big factor in that series, so I think he was at least helping him more than he was hurting them. He wasn't shooting the ball well, but it wasn't like he was. I wouldn't say he was like shooting them out of games like we saw maybe Drew Holiday do sometimes. Brook Lopez, not a great offensive series. Malcolm Brogdon was still hurt, but Brook Lopez, I think defensively was great. Boston didn't score a ton of points that series. This one, maybe I think if you put it all together, every game they had at least 6 guys who were going to help the team more than they hurt. But so that's maybe the weakest example here. Let's look at that Toronto series. Brook Lopez, great series, averaged 15 a game. Chris Milton, great series. Malcolm Brogdon was back, great series. A lot of people say he was the second best Buck that series. George Hill, 42% from 3, 10 points a game. Pat Connaughton didn't play as much, but 44% from 3, 70 minutes, pretty good. Got 5 guys. Eric Bledsoe, not good that series.
Horrible. Just George Hill had to say it. George Hill did do it.
29% from the field. Giannis did struggle quite a bit in that series. Remember missing all those free throws. So and Nikola Mirotic, obviously, that killed his NBA career that series. Ersan was okay; he was there, but they really did not have. They had at most, I would say, 5 guys. So wasn't there. All right, let's go to the bubble year. First series against Orlando. Really excellent Giannis, Milton, and Lopez series. Bledsoe was fine, but we won't even count him because great series from George Hill, Wesley Matthews, Pat Connaughton, and even Kyle Korver and Marvin Williams. Very good numbers that series. Each played 75 minutes, shot the ball well from 3, averaged 6-7 points a game. We'll take it. Had, by my count, it's you had 8 guys in that series. Great. Against Miami the next round, you were missing Giannis, and Giannis, again, struggled that series. 53% at the line, and he was at the line 41 times. But great series from Chris Milton. He won them that game that Giannis was hurt. Brook Lopez, outstanding series, 18 points a game, 42% from 3. Dante DiVincenzo, great series off the bench for them. And Kyle Korver shot 46% from 3, 5 points a game that series. Everyone else, I mean, that again, that ended Eric Bledsoe's tenure in Milwaukee. Marvin Williams didn't show much. George Hill was okay. Wesley Matthews played good defense, but he really did not have 6 guys. Let's go to the championship here. The sweep of Miami, no problem. You had Bryn Forbes outscoring Jimmy Butler, Giannis, Middleton, Lopez, Holiday, all great, even if they didn't have necessarily good shooting numbers sometimes. Bobby Portis looking great. No problems there. PJ Tucker, great. Had 8 guys. Against Brooklyn, 6. Clearly 6. We remember, by game 7 of that series, the only guy getting minutes off the bench was Pat Connaughton. Bobby Portis was benched after game 4 or 5. Bryn Forbes, the clock struck midnight for him after that first round series. He had the 7th most minutes on the team, but he did not do much with them. So they just barely got by. That's what I mean when I say you need a minimum of 6 guys. Mm-hmm. Let's look at the Eastern Conference Finals. Giannis, when healthy, very good, but we won't count him. Chris Middleton, MVP of that series. Drew Holiday, best shooting numbers and scoring numbers he had in a series as a Buck at 22 and 10 and shot 37% from field or from deep. Brook Lopez had a couple outstanding games. He had that 30-some point game. Bobby Portis, really great. Pat Connaughton was great that entire postseason. PJ Tucker, obviously huge for them. And then the last guy to get them up to 7, on the group project, Mr. Jeff Teague, really helped them a lot that series. All right, NBA Finals. You know who they are. It was the starting lineup, then Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton. Obviously, I'm including PJ Tucker. But those guys got no one else in more than 22 minutes in that series, and they won an NBA championship. Literally all of them were good, even if Drew Holiday was shooting 36% from the floor. They were He was making amazing defensive plays and throwing alley-oops. No problem. 2022, first round against the Bulls. Giannis, this was like the peak Giannis like postseason series this in 2022. Like the Boston series, he was like maybe the most dominant we've seen him in his career the next series, but he was already doing it in the first round. Drew Holiday was very good. Brook Lopez was very good. And Chris Middleton got hurt. Wesley Matthews, I think he stepped in the starting lineup. He was in the starting lineup before. Bobby Portis stepped in the starting lineup. He played quite well. Pat Connaughton, again, pretty solid. Wesley Matthews, good. They had 7 guys, and the one guy I haven't mentioned, Grayson Allen. That was the series that, like, I mean, he was just absolutely on fire.
That was the peak.
Yep.
Yes.
58% from 3, average 13 a game. 7 guys, easy. Here's where it starts to get bad, my friends. Boston, that next round. You have Giannis, like absolute height of his powers. Then you have Drew Holiday, who's averaging 20 points a game, 21 points a game, playing amazing defense. But again, not a good offensive player in the postseason. Pat Connaughton, great series. He was 3rd on the team in minutes and shot 42% from 3, 10 points a game. Wesley Matthews didn't have the shooting numbers or anything, played great defense, I remember in that series. But Brook Lopez did not have a good series. Bobby Portis had a really bad series. And Grayson Allen also had a really bad series. You had 4 guys. It's amazing. It's amazing that they got that series to 7 games. They were ahead 3 times in that series. They were up 3 games to 2. That's amazing.
Yep.
All right. Miami in 2023. Chris Middleton, great series. Averaged 23 a game. 46, 40, and 86. Brook Lopez, 19 a game. 58, 41, 79. 77, excuse me. Giannis played 3 games. Struggled. 45% from the line. Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton, people do not remember, were very good in that series. Both averaged 12 a game and shot 48% from 3. Wesley Matthews only played 2 games, but was very good. Still, like, you look at this, Bobby Portis was bad. Drew Holiday was getting cooked left and right. I mean, he was not having like he was having his typical kind of like blah offensive series, but then was just getting destroyed by Jimmy Butler, and he wanted to keep getting destroyed by Jimmy Butler. Like he wanted that assignment, and the team trusted him to do that, and they let him keep doing it. It's kind of interesting to me, like looking back, it's like everyone this past year was saying, "Oh God, like really missed Drew Holiday's defense." It's like, yeah, Drew Holiday is one of the best defenders of guards in the league, but against a bigger wing, the last time I saw him as a Buck, he was getting completely destroyed. I mean, that's not a great matchup for him. So, I mean, obviously Drew Holiday's one of the best defenders of this era, but that was a bad series for him. So the Bucks had, by my count, 6 guys, and I think that's. I mean, Joe Ingles was not bad in that series too, but like maybe 6 guys most, and but like Giannis was missing a bunch of those games, so maybe more like 5. I would say like Middleton, Lopez, Allen, Connaughton, and then I guess like whichever of Ingles or Matthews. This past year, boy, this is the worst. You had Middleton lighting the world on fire. You had Damian Lillard. He missed 2 games, but when he's healthy, 42, 42, 97, averaging 31 a game. Brook Lopez, 58, 43, 17 a game. Patrick Beverley, playing good defense, 8 points a game, 41, 36, 86. That's it. That's really it. Like, Malik Beasley, you look at his numbers, his shooting numbers, they're very good. But we know he didn't play well in that series. He was bad. He was bad in that series. He can't play defense. Bobby Portis got thrown out of a game. He had a couple of good games, but we saw it. He was hurting the team more than he was helping him. Definitely. Pat Connaughton was playing a lot. He was not helping the team. The Bucks had 4 guys who were like these kind of net positives. So this year, they need to have 7 guys to do it. I mean, I think it's great that this year we don't maybe have to lean as heavily on Pat Connaughton and Bobby Portis to be two of those guys. And the hope is that DeLon Wright, Taurean Prince, Gary Trent are those guys. Because the other four guys, like, I didn't mention Chris Middleton's name really in any of those. He's always had an excellent postseason series. Giannis, I mentioned a few times, but, you know, we know he can be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just need 7 dudes to be, however you want to put it, like net positives or whatever. They just need to be helping the team more than they're hurting them. That's it. I think that's, you look at teams who were winning the championship. Boston had clearly 7 guys who were doing that. You know, whichever of Sam Hauser or Peyton Pritchard you want to put in with their main 6 players, clearly they had 7 guys who in any series, in literally any of their series, you can rely on for that. Denver the year before, their starting 5 was great, and then they had Bruce Brown, definitely like the type of guy you would describe as being more helpful than hurtful, and then Jeff Green, and then Christian Brown a little bit too. Yeah, it's just, you look at every team that wins consistently in the postseason, that's what they have. So that's what the Bucks need to do.
It's why the 8-man rotation bit that we have on the podcast, like, it is a bit just because it's funny, because it's like, oh, okay, well, your back is against the wall. You literally have to pick 8 people. But
well, I think it's fair to say 8, because you need a backup kind of, you know, you need to have 7 of 8 guys, I would say.
But it's like, yes, who right now at this moment has like the confidence, your confidence that when it's for real, they're going to actually deliver something, whatever that something is. It's, for a lot of the guys, they're going to see their usage rate drop, but like, what are they delivering? Who do you believe in? And that's why it's always funny when we get there and people are like, you can, like, okay, starters, easy enough for the most part. And then you start going to the bench, like,
yeah,
that's why these past seasons, like, I don't really know who I can believe in, because nobody, and then they proved it again. The Giannis injury is a huge mitigating factor, but even if, you know, they get past that and Giannis is out there, you know, there were a lot of guys in that middle portion. It was like, I don't know what we're getting from you, which
exactly.
And it played out the way it did on the court.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think Prince and Wright both have recent, like I've mentioned, examples of being the that type of player, a helpful player, in the last couple seasons. Like, and doing it more consistently, I think, maybe than Bobby Portis, who I really like. He hasn't had a good playoff series since like the NBA Finals or the Eastern Conference Finals. He's just not been good in the playoffs. It's pretty simple.
I would advise him to start rebounding with 2 hands. This is year whatever. Let's start using.
We're not playing volleyball. We're not playing volleyball, dude.
Yeah,
like just grab them boards.
Okay, so given where the roster's at, given all the discussion we've had, final question for you. I want you to predict the teams finish in the East and how far they will go in the playoffs. It's not very fair. We don't know how everything's going to work out, but just whatever factors you want to throw in there, what do you think the finish is going to look like?
So I think that there's going to be a bunch of 3, actually maybe 4 teams who are going to be vying for seeds 2 through 5. It seems kind of trite to put Boston at the top. I don't think Boston's going to be a 60-win team again, and because they're going to be taking their foot off the gas a little bit. That's just what happens after you win a title. But I do think that, you know, barring injury, they'll probably be a few games clear of the 2 seed. And then, like this next tier of teams that everyone is talking about, certainly the Knicks and the Sixers, everyone's favorite offseason darlings, and the Bucks, who absolutely need to be in that conversation too. And I'm going to throw in the Cleveland Cavaliers just because they were in this group last year, but that was with some injuries with Darius Garland. And I think Kenny Atkinson, the jury is still a bit out on him as a coach of a winning team in the NBA. He just hasn't, like, he's great at developing talent and like making a team, taking a team from like the basement to becoming an up and coming team for sure. But can he like lead a contending team? We're going to find out this year. I do think though that Cleveland is probably going to be in this tier, and maybe Orlando, but I'm less confident in them and Indiana. So I think there's going to be 4 teams who are going to finish between like, let's say like 48, maybe 4, let's say 49, and like 53 or 54 wins. Maybe more like 53. We're gonna take that to like 50 to 53. I actually think the Bucks will finish at the top of that. I think they'll clear that. They'll get the 2nd seed by just like a game. This has been a theme in the NBA, in the East for the last several years, really since I guess 2020, what was it, 2022, when the Bucks were tied. They finished the season tied for the 3rd seed, or the 2nd seed with Boston. They got the 3rd seed on the tiebreaker at 51 wins. I kind of see that happening again this year, but I think the Bucks will have for some of the reasons we were talking about, a lot of the reasons we were talking about, and just maybe taking a little more pride and like being, a little bit snubbed this year in this offseason, or just like in the projections. Taking a little bit more pride will give them that little extra oomph to like clear it and win like 53 games or so, and just notch above. I'm thinking Philadelphia for that 2 seed over the 3 seed. I think New York overachieved a little bit last year, and I don't think that they're going to quite. I don't think they're quite going to get. They're going to finish a few games back, just because I think the Hardenstein loss will hurt a little bit more than people are talking about. I don't think getting Bridges is going to paper over that a lot. And actually, I do have a really bold prediction that I'm happy to share with you about the Knicks. I think that this year the Knicks will again lose in the 2nd round, and it will be the end of Tom Thibodeau in New York, and he will be gone. And next offseason, all everyone will be talking about will Jay Wright finally come to the NBA and coach all his former players at the Nova Knicks, and he won't do it. He'll stay retired. So you heard it.
Write that down, folks. You heard that it's September 14th. Let's write that down. Maybe in case it does come true, you heard it here first on Do Diaries.
So okay, second seed, and I'm going with they make the NBA Finals. I'm not going to go further than that, but I think they will have to face Boston, but Boston did not face much adversity last year in the postseason. They had as Jackson said, a little bit of a Mickey Mouse run. They dealt with Miami without Jimmy Butler, Cleveland team that was not super threatening and was missing Donovan Mitchell for a time, and then they got the plucky upstart in the East Finals, who like couldn't really play defense and just like completely outclassed. The Bucks, healthy last year with Giannis, of course, I think would have given the Celtics a real run for their money. They played them very well in the regular season. The first game of the regular season wasn't very good. I remember last year, but I think they won. Were they 1-2 or were they 2-1? I know they won the last game.
1-2, I believe.
Yeah.
But the second one was very close.
Very competitive. Yes, it was a very competitive game, and I want to say there was like an injury that the Bucks had that was like Milton wasn't playing or something like that.
Probably.
No, I think that a healthy Bucks team. I think it was Justin who said like that team was built last year more to beat the Celtics. I think this team is even more built to handle the Celtics, and I think it would be a really competitive and long series. But I don't see the Celtics. I don't see them repeating as much as people are talking about. Like, it's very hard to repeat in the NBA these days. Mm-hmm. Like they were sort of blessed a little bit by the injury gods. I know Porzingis was hurt, but Porzingis is not as crucial to that team as someone like any of the Bucks starters would be if they lost them. Like, that would be a lot harder for the Bucks to deal with than it was for Boston to deal without Porzingis. So, I mean, you just look at like the top ends of this roster. I put up a poll on Brew Hoop the other day. It's like, who's got the best like 8-man rotation, as we're talking about, among the Eastern Conference contenders who aren't Boston? I mean, I think it's pretty clear to me it's the Bucks. Like, it's not Cleveland. You look at Philadelphia beyond their big three, George, like Embiid, who have, their playoff problems, and Maxey. It's like, all right, Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, old ass Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson. Like, really? Like, this team is built to, like, we're talking about, like I said, you need 7 guys
Mhm.
You need 7 guys to be helped. Like, is that going to happen with them? I don't know about that. And then I just don't think that the Knicks have enough top end talent. I think they do have maybe 7 guys. Like, at least, like you talk about Brunson, Bridge, all the Villanova guys and OG Anunoby. That's, I guess, 6 right there, or 5, but then it's like, all right, which of Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, and Miles McBride or Precious Achiuwa are you going to are you going to need to lean on in key postseason minutes? I think the Bucks, they're 8 guys, they're 7 guys. They are the only ones who can hold a candle to Boston, and the Bucks have the best player. And again, I just don't think Boston has had to really face postseason adversity, and I think the Bucks are the only ones who are going to give it to them.
Okay. I love it. That's an optimistic note. TBD on the finals, but to get to the finals, I think would be.
I'm not going
no matter
that
how
far.
it goes.
Don't go that far by rule.
To get to the finals, that obviously be not obviously a fully crowning achievement, but quite the achievement given expectations, the way last season went, for them to be able to come online to turn it around more or less and build the roster a little bit more competently, stronger. I should say stronger given the talent pool that they can pull from. So I like the optimism. I like the analysis. I agree with a lot of that. And also like things with the Knicks. I mean, at a certain point, the Thibodeau attrition, it does pile up. They may have been able to shrug it off up until the second round last year, but it does pile up eventually.
I think they were playing with house money a bit last year. You're right. It caught up to them, and we'll see if it. I don't know if it'll necessarily catch up with them this year. Like, are they going to have like injury problems because of that? I don't know necessarily, but I just don't think you can. I mean, I really do not think Tom Thibodeau's a good coach. Like, I think he's the most overrated head coach we've seen in the NBA in a number of years. And I mean, the gulag ball that he likes, and then I also thought that until more recently, he really didn't have a great handle. Like, certainly while he was in Minnesota, a great handle on how the modern NBA is really played. I think he's kind of addressed that in terms of just how he's running offenses, but I don't know. They won't be able to they lost basically everybody. They started dropping like flies in the postseason last year. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they're facing similar issues that time next year too.
It's terrorist basketball, and we don't negotiate with terrorists here on Dear Diaries and Milwaukee Bucks podcast. Okay, that was great. We ran through everything. I'm going to now switch gears to a repeat segment, Van's Warped Tour. For the background, for those who are maybe newer listeners, Van has a bit of a background in music, if I can, I'll put it lightly, and he usually comes with some sort of musical media to enlighten our minds and expand our horizons beyond what you might be listening to on 102.1 up in Milwaukee. So, Van, why don't you blow our minds a little bit with what you got on the tour?
Well, I think this is maybe the 3rd time on our tour that, in honor of you, Riley, our
I was going to say, a lot of these do tend to link to me for some reason.
Our resident, God, I don't know what the German version of Francophile or Anglophile is, but whatever it is, you're that.
I think it's just Germanophile.
Germanophile.
I think that's what they call them.
You're our resident Germanophile. So, have you, Riley? Have you ever heard, or at least heard of, or seen the movie Das Boot?
Yes, Das Boot.
Okay. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Okay. So for those who don't know, it was this 1981 war epic produced in West Germany about a German U-boat during World War II. It's a great movie. I really recommend it. It's a long movie, but it's a great movie. And the soundtrack to it really is quite good. It is kind of contemporary for, think about what kind of music you might expect to hear coming out of like West Berlin or like Cologne in 1981. It does sound like that. It's a combination of synths and orchestral, strings and brass horns and stuff. It's great. Now, the movie takes place, as I said, on a German U-boat in World War II, and the U-boat is called U-96. In the late 70s, in Hamburg, a there was a project that took its name from the name of that submarine, the U-96. It was so it's sort of like this was like straight up early techno, and this came out several years. This came out 10 years after the movie, but U-96, who is basically like, okay, the membership at the time was really just like one guy, as these projects usually are, especially with electronic music. Think like 9 Inch Nails is just Trent Reznor or whatever. Klaus Doldinger was the name of this fellow, a saxophonist actually, but also a film composer, who worked significantly with Wolfgang Petersen, the director of the Das Boot. So he was the guy who composed the film score. But then this DJ named Alex Christensen, also from Hamburg, who also goes by Jasper Forks or Alex C, is the guy, the founding member, and just the dude who is U-96. So he remixed Klaus Doldinger's score into what a publication, a British publication called a portentous novelty house hit, complete with marine sound effects, submarine noises, and the legendary lyric "Techno, Techno." It was called "Compelling and Absurdly Addictive." With no significant airplay, this techno version of the theme to the movie Das Boot is number one for the second consecutive week in Germany. It's like Kraftwerk on acid. So it does really slap. It's taking the themes, the major themes of this movie, the one main theme of the movie, and just like running it through some synths and some envelope filters and whatnot. And then there's like a robotic voice saying, it's interesting. It'll say just straight up techno in English, and then it'll say emergency or attention water pumps or something just dealing with the submarine, like armed torpedoes or whatever. Anyway, so Das Boot by U-96 is your stop on the Vans Warped Tour this week in honor of our I think this is the third time I have been able to, at least the third time I've been able to bring up a German song on this with you, Riley.
I think this is the first one of the German ones that I'm not familiar with. I'm looking. I have to assume
a feather in my cap. You knew all my previous ones.
I have to assume the album cover I'm looking at is the release to because it looks like they had a British label, a German British label for it, and it says U-96 Das Boot, the TV advertised mega seller album, including at least 10 top 10 hits. That's on the cover of the album, which is awesome.
Must be some sort of compilation or something. Yeah,
I have no idea what's going on with that. I will be putting it in the queue. I would encourage everybody else to be putting it in the queue as well. It looks interesting. I'm not much of a techno or rave guy, but 90s techno electronic is a different beast altogether, and I tend to enjoy kind of going back down memory lane there. So
I'm with you on that. And this one, maybe it's just because I like that soundtrack so much, like to the actual movie. Like this one works for me.
They need to do it's like Metropolis. Like there are so many different versions of Fritz Lang's Metropolis that have like different scores, and they'll do like somebody record it with like hair metal or whatever as the soundtrack. We need Das Boot with this, and I'm sure there has to be a cut somewhere of somebody slapping those two together online. It has to be.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Or maybe it's like. It's sort of like when you're saying that, it's like the Leonard Cohen song Hallelujah. Like everyone in America is and by the way, I'm really don't care for that song, but everyone's like recorded a version of that. It's like you got Jeff Buckley and like who's the John Cale or whatever, like and who knows who else, but everyone's got a version of that, and like everyone puts their own spin on it. This would be a lot more fun. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a great stop on the world tour of Fans Warp 2. I appreciate one more shout out to all our German listeners. I can't imagine there's a lot of you, but if there are, this is right up your alley in particular.
Listener, I hope. If there's one, I'll be very. Let's look at the we can find out where people are listening from. We get some, like when we look at the back end stuff. We see where they're. Yes. We see the countries. We get some Greek in there. I don't know if we're seeing German. We'll have to see.
Jakob Pertl, I know you're listening. We love your game. We respect your game, and we respect even more your listenership, continued listenership of this Dear Diaries Milwaukee Bucks podcast. I know, but
yeah, it's close. It's the same.
He's got umlauts in the name. It'll get the job done for our purposes. All right. With that, we're going to wrap it up. Van, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you making the time on your Saturday. You're washed 30 or 30-something-year-old man Saturday nights to come on and enlighten us. Where can people find you if they're not just on Brew Hoop? Where else can they find you if you want them to find you?
I'm on Twitter at Lohaus Fan. I
just wanted you to say at Lohaus Fan. That's all I wanted.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, no, I tweet. People seem to be interested when I tweet about like cap stuff. You know, like it's like me and Frank and maybe a few other guys were just like insatiable, like just nerds about the CBA and whatnot. So I think maybe I'm the sickest one. And just figuring out what the hell all of this stuff means, literally looking at the CBA and trying to make sense of that just weird ass legalese, to see what can the Bucks do now with this second apron. And I think we figured it out pretty well. So yeah, you can find some of my thoughts about team building and like cap stuff there. And then just check us out on Brew Hoop. We've got a great crew. Even if the team is not as fun like they were last year, we have a great time. We have a nice core of writers who are all putting out really good content. We've had a really good like month or two of content, I think.
And this is always the desert
all
period
over the
as
map.
well.
Yeah.
So the fact that we've been able to push through.
Yeah. Shout out to Gabe for subjecting his body to certain things, and shout out to Jack Traherne, our newest writer from Down Under, who is a hooper, is an actual hooper, like a more recent hooper than any of us, writing some really great stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a great year, and I've got some stuff coming out soon. Like I mentioned, I'll have something about Gary Trent and Tyus Jones coming out, and a few other things in the pipeline are in the at least bonking around my head, like maybe write a little bit about Pat Connaughton soon, things like that.
That's how you know the sickness is real, folks. When we're doing the September Pat Connaughton content,
people talk about him, man. Like people are talking about him, and not in the good ways.
they love the content. People love Pat Connaughton, and if you want more Pat Connaughton content, I know where you can find it. BrewHoop.com. We have all of that, plus our recurring segments. Monday Morning Media Roundup continues year-round. Wednesday Weekly Wrap-Up, we believe, will be back for the regular season. Other recurring segments, and of course, pregame, during, post-game coverage. Find everything at Brew Hoop. We appreciate your listening. Like, subscribe, share, all the usual stuff.
Did you say Tuesday Tracker? Sorry, I zoned out for a second.
Tuesday, I did not. Tuesday Tracker as well. Tuesday Tracker, and then the results of yes, and then the results are lots of stuff. I mean, there's so many things I run out of in my mind, the list of things that are going. But you can find it all at brewhoop.com. We appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you again very soon.